the latest NFL rumors right here, right now. And a trade went down overnight. Corey Coleman has been dealt to the Buffalo Bills. The Browns getting a 2020 7th-round pick in exchange for that. So Coleman, drafted 15th overall in the 2016 NFL draft, simply has not panned out to what the Browns had hoped, and that is certainly not an anomaly considering the drafting that has gone on for Cleveland the last couple of years. Coleman appeared in 19 games with 18 starts for Cleveland over the past 2 seasons, racking up 56 career receptions, 718 yards, and 5 touchdowns to his credit. Good player when he's healthy. Talented guy on the football field. I think there is a good ceiling for him, better than, say, a Zay Jones, who you would think would be the number 2 guy at wide receiver for the Bills, but maybe not anymore with Corey Coleman now in town. So how about this? From 2012 to 2016, the list of disappointing first-round picks is quite underwhelming. Take a look at this for the Cleveland Browns. Brandon Weeden, Barkevious Mingo, Justin Gilbert, Johnny Manziel, Danny Shelton, Cam Irving. Not one of those players is on the roster for the Cleveland Browns right now. Meanwhile, for the Buffalo Bills, desperately need wide receiver help. Outside of Kelvin Benjamin, there is just nothing there. Zay Jones, Jeremy Curley, Andre Holmes. Curley and Holmes are cast-offs, really. So Coleman could be that number 2 guy there. Zay Jones, that number 3 guy. Who won the Corey Coleman trade? Type B for Buffalo, Type C for Cleveland. Just a reminder, 7th-round pick in 2020 for the Cleveland Browns. So maybe it's just more addition by subtraction for Cleveland. Meanwhile, for Buffalo, obviously filling out a need. Now, by the way, both these franchises have been at the center of Dez Bryant rumors out there. A, because, well, John Dorsey, the GM of the Browns, expressed interest about it. And B, the Buffalo Bills have a major need at this position and could use Dez Bryant on that depth chart there. Watch out for Corey Coleman this year, folks. If he is healthy, he could be a very productive wide receiver. He's a first-round pick for a reason. I think eventually he can pan out. He just has to watch his hands. Like, literally, he broke his hands the last 2 years, so he's got to figure that out. But other than that, Corey Coleman could be a nice piece for Buffalo. Speaking of the Bills, Kelvin Benjamin, currently on the Bills roster, took a jab at his former team. The Carolina Panthers told The Athletic that he never felt he was a fit with Carolina and specifically was never a fit with Cam Newton. So I guess he was fairly happy to see that he got traded to the Buffalo Bills. Here's what he said just recently. Quote, "I should have just been drafted by somebody else. I should have never went to Carolina. Truly, I just think Carolina was bad for me." He did go on to say he would have been better off with the likes of Eli Manning, Aaron Rodgers, or Ben Roethlisberger. Benjamin felt that Cam Newton didn't put his throws in the proper position for Kelvin Benjamin, which is a very specific critique to have, by the way. Now, Newton said recently on social media that he wouldn't engage Benjamin and would continue to do his work, so Cam took the high road, if you will. Meanwhile, Bills head coach Sean McDermott, not a fan of Benjamin going out and making these statements here. So he went on to say publicly that there's a time and place for everything and that Benjamin's statements weren't the right time nor the place to make them. So there you go. The Buffalo Bills have a little bit of a PR situation on their hands here with Kelvin Benjamin, making sure that he says the right things at the right time going forward into the regular season. How about Sam Darnold starting week 1 for the New York Jets? According to Adam Schefter, the Jets feel Darnold has a very fair shot to be the week 1 starter. Now, the Jets reportedly believe Darnold is closer and farther along with camp than originally expected. So, first of all, his performance during the preseason will be key. This will definitely be the indicator, if you will. But this is also kind of a surprise, right? I mean, we're talking about a Jets team that has 2 veterans at the quarterback position, both with starting experience. Josh McCown and Teddy Bridgewater. And we still haven't seen Sam Darnold take preseason reps yet, let alone a regular season rep. So in that vein, it does seem a little rushed, if you will, to see this report in that the Jets are actually interested in starting Sam Darnold week 1. Now, there are differences in the way coaching staffs out there actually frame it. Like, a lot of staffs will say, yeah, competition is great. Sure, I'll give Sam a chance to be the week 1 starter. This report is different. This is like a very fair shot that he will be the week 1 guy against the Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football, which is, by the way, is that first game of the doubleheader that night. It'll be interesting to see who gets the start in that week 3 dress rehearsal game for the Jets against the New York Giants. If it's Darnold, that's going to fuel the buzz that Darnold will be the regular season starter at quarterback. But again, it would be a major surprise for me. I also think it might be a mistake by the likes of the Jets if they usher out Sam Darnold in week 1 when you have the perfect stopgap quarterback in Josh McCown and a really good backup quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater. Just there could be some mistakes being made. We know how Sam Darnold is a turnover machine at times. That's what the tape shows at USC. He needs some molding. He needs some polishing. He has incredible upside, but that doesn't mean you usher him out in week 1 and say, all right, here you go, get it done against the Lions, a good defensive team with a good secondary led by Glover Quinn and Darius Slay. So for Sam Darnold, sure, he wants to be the week 1 starter. Do Jets fans want that? That's the big question out there. All right, so stay tuned on that. Report came through just a few moments before coming on air, by the way, so that's fresh. All right, folks, you're watching the Cam Rogers Show presented by AutoList. Are you looking for a new or used car out there and you're tired of browsing a million sites? Well, go to Autolist.com to browse the largest source of inventory on the web or download their top-rated mobile app for iPhone or Android today. Let's talk about Richard Sherman and the San Francisco 49ers. Sherman will miss the next week of camp due to a hamstring injury. This coming from NBC Sports Bay Area. So that means Sherman won't see any action when the 49ers do battle with the Dallas Cowboys on Thursday night. So the plan is for Sherman to, quote, progress back next week. So he may not even be in the lineup for that second preseason game for San Francisco. Now, the 49ers have a couple of key injuries here to track. Guard Josh Garnett will also miss the preseason opener as he continues to deal with a knee injury, which is not good news for the former first-round pick during the Trent Baalke era, who was cemented to be the right guard guy along with Lincoln Tomlinson there at left guard after shedding some pounds and getting ready for the Kyle Shanahan zone blocking scheme. And here we are with Garnett dealing with injuries, and Shanahan kind of spoke harshly, publicly, about Garnett pretty recently. Meanwhile, Eric Armstead, he's dealing with a hamstring. Linebacker Brock Coyle, he's got a hip that he's dealing with. Offensive lineman J.P. Flynn is dealing with a knee. All of those guys will miss the next week for the 49ers, so no Dallas Cowboys for them on Thursday night either. But expect Kyle Shanahan to take a really patient approach here with Richard Sherman. He is slotted to be the number 1 corner for this team. There's no reason to rush him into the preseason when you're talking about an all-pro secondary player. All right, let's talk about Jon Gruden and Martavis Bryant, because apparently Chucky is not very happy with Bryant so far. Actually went on public record to call out his new wide receiver, saying he has to stay on the field and play better. Now, Bryant has dealt with some illnesses recently, but he's a new member of this team, of course, acquired via a draft night trade, and apparently Gruden's patience is wearing pretty thin. And considering Bryant came over via a trade, there's no logical reason for the Raiders to actually cut him. But there could still be a scenario where Martavis Bryant is very underwhelming and just does not see a lot of playing time during the regular season until he performs to the level that he should. The Raiders, meanwhile, are also bracing for a potential suspension with Martavis Bryant due to violations of substance abuse policies. So you have some illnesses, some bad on the practice field play, and a potential suspension that could go down. You wonder why the Steelers were trying to trade this guy. And by the way, I think he's a really talented player. I think he can emerge as a true number 3 wide receiver for the Oakland Raiders, right behind Cooper and Jordy Nelson. But if the bad PR continues to pile up, and if Jon Gruden is calling you out, that ain't good. So you better pick it up if you are Martavis Bryant there. All right, so from one wide receiver to another, let's talk about Odell Beckham Jr., who is confident contract negotiations will be solved very, very soon. Now, he's willing to let these contract talks go about on their own terms between his camp, if you will, and Giants leadership. Sure sounds like he's taking a very patient approach to this, which is kind of in stark contrast to earlier, back like in April, when OBJ reportedly wanted a trade or wanted this contract situation solved very, very soon. Now Beckham is taking a more relaxed approach to this ordeal, it seems. Beckham's agent was at Giants camp last week, so the ball is rolling towards a potential deal. And look, Beckham is one of the elite wide receivers in the NFL. He should be paid as such. He's entering the final year of his rookie contract, so he's getting grossly underpaid on a yearly basis. There's no doubt about that, and the Giants need him on offense. You saw that Giants offense without him last year, without him, Sterling Shepard, and Brandon Marshall at the same time, might I add, and it was pretty darn putrid. So for OBJ, is he a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL? I think he might just be on the outside. I see Courtney chiming in with no. I think I agree. I think OBJ is probably top 5, top 6 for sure. Not top 3 in my eyes. I would definitely lean towards, a situation with Antonio Brown, Julio Jones. I would give the likes of DeAndre Hopkins a hard look for sure. Just the pure talent that he has, the quarterback play that he has dealt with, and still producing numbers. So those are my top 3 just off the top of my head. So Beckham, contract talks, heading in the right direction. He's confident they will go down and be completed soon. Terrance Williams recently spoke upon Dez Bryant no longer being a member of the Dallas Cowboys. Pretty much admitted that he misses him. And he went on to say, quote, "It's different because you just miss the different stuff that he brings to the table. He got us right whenever stuff didn't go well, so it's kind of a big difference." Now, Bryant, of course, remains unsigned despite the recent buzz out there that maybe he would join the Cleveland Browns. That doesn't seem very likely as we stand, although who knows after they just traded away Corey Coleman. I'm hearing some reports out there, though, that that trade is not Dez Bryant related, nor is it Josh Gordon related. Now, my top 5 spots for Dez Bryant remain unchanged since Friday. New England is still my prediction. I think they signed Dez Bryant. I don't care about Eric Decker. Sorry. Tennessee at 2. Green Bay Packers check in at number 3. The Colts at number 4. I think the Steelers could rise up my list in the coming days. I think there is very real reason to believe Dez Bryant could be a member of Pittsburgh for a couple of key notes here. Dez reportedly wants to join the team, number 1, which is important. Number 2, you have this injury here, which we really don't know much about in regards to Antonio Brown. And then number 3, right after Juju Smith-Schuster, there's a bit of a drop-off in terms of wide receiver ability for Pittsburgh. Yeah, you got James Washington, the rookie, but he still needs to develop. You can't just assume that he's going to produce at a wide receiver number 3 type of level. Justin Hunter, Darius Hayward-Bay, these guys are backups at best. So if Dez Bryant joins the Steelers, he could be that premier red zone option for Pittsburgh, which I don't think they have as we stand. Jesse James, good tight end and all, but maybe he should have held on to that catch against the New England Patriots. Oops, did I just say that? Yeah, I'm sorry, Steelers fans, it's true. So what team should Dez Bryant sign with? Let me know in comments. Jimmy says the Raiders. Tito says Dez will sign with the Browns. I'll tell you what, I'm going to hammer home that the New England Patriots will be the destination for Dez Bryant. I will continue to say that until he signs elsewhere. But again, if I'm wrong, I will admit I'm wrong. So don't worry about that, because I will roast myself if I am completely way off on the Dez Bryant prediction. All right, speaking of those Browns, what is the latest on Josh Gordon? Well, the Browns are not rushing him to the fray. So if Gordon doesn't report to Browns training camp tomorrow, he'll technically become an exclusive rights free agent when the new league year begins in March of 2019. However, a Browns source told Ian Rappaport they've made it clear to Gordon they don't plan to hold him to that Tuesday deadline. They want him to focus on his health, his well-being, and so rushing him back to training camp, according to the Browns, would be irresponsible. Now, Gordon, of course, announced last month he would not attend the start of camp in order to focus with his health, and I think he still has the ability to be one of the premier receivers in the National Football League. He just needs a chance to get healthy, to get his mind right, and then he needs those repetitions on the football field to actually produce. And with Corey Coleman being traded, I know I just said that it's not Josh Gordon related, but you got to believe there at least is some degree of confidence that Gordon will be back for the regular season. John Dorsey, the general manager for the Browns, has said as much. So for that, I think Gordon will be good to go at some point. He is one of the bigger mysteries in the NFL right now. Just the way things were trending, especially during mandatory minicamp, it was like, okay, Josh Gordon's going to be good to go for the Browns in training camp. He's headed in the right direction. He's ready to be a top-line receiver alongside Jarvis Landry. And as we stand, that just is not the case. It's almost like he took a step back, right? And is now revisiting his health and his mental state. So for Josh Gordon, I guess he's just taking a baby step approach here as he goes throughout the health process and getting his mind right for the regular season. And for Gordon, hopefully he gets back at least for some preseason reps there for the Cleveland Browns. By the way, a team that apparently has one of the best wide receiver corps in the NFL. You know who said that? Corey Coleman, who is no longer there. So, yeah, take that with a grain of salt. All right, let's talk about T.O. So he, of course, had his own ceremony during the Hall of Fame enshrinement ceremony, and T.O. blamed the media, sports writers, for keeping him out of the Hall of Fame. He said, quote, "I'd like to set the record straight. It's about the mere fact that the sports writers aren't aligned with the mission and core values of the Hall of Fame." Now, T.O. spoke in front of a large crowd at the McKenzie Arena on the campus of his alma mater, University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, and Owen said in his heart he knew it was the right thing to do to skip the enshrinement ceremony. Now, I agree with T.O. that it took way too long for this guy to get a chance. Despite being one of the premier wide receivers in NFL history, it took 3 total tries before Owens got the knock on the door. So, by the way, everybody's saying, oh, T.O. is being so selfish about this. He should not be pulling this stunt and all that. Well, hey, for those who say that, I challenge you to go back and listen to his speech. Because during his speech, he gave shout-outs to people out there that helped him get to where he was and where he is now. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, heck, Jerry Rice got a shout-out as well. And talked about his family, his grandparents, and how integral they were to the progress for T.O. This was not a me fest. And I think some people kind of looked at it from a broad stroke and said, oh, T.O. is just skipping the Hall of Fame ceremony to get attention so we can talk about him more. Well, no, I think that's a little short-sighted. I think you have to look at the entire picture here. And he spent a lot of time during his speech thanking the exterior, his family, role models, whatever the case, for getting him to the Hall of Fame level. So for Terrell Owens, I think mostly he just wanted to send a message to the Hall that there can't be a mistake like this again, in that there shouldn't be a premier Hall of Fame potential player going through 3 opportunities to finally get his chance to put on the jacket. So I understand where T.O. is coming from. By the way, he recently worked out for a CFL team out there, so he's trying to make the pro football comeback happen. First, it's going to have to be with the CFL, you would think, and then eventually he gets to the NFL level. Maybe. I would love to see that happen. But T.O. did blame sports writers out there for not being aligned with the values of the Hall of Fame. All right? So there you go. You guys are watching the Cam Rogers Show, presented by AutoList. If you are looking for that new or used car out there and you're trying to save yourself some time, go ahead and check out Autolist.com. Browse the largest source of inventory on the web. Heck, download their top-rated mobile app for iPhone or Android today. It is the way to go if you're doing some car shopping. All right, I see a lot of thoughts being thrown in about T.O. I'll be sure to answer you guys via my The Cam Rogers Show Facebook page. Be sure to like it. I'll be sure to tag you guys and answer any questions you may have / comments you may have. So be sure to keep hitting me up. All right, let's talk about Devontae Parker, because this was supposed to be the season of Devontae. He was supposed to be the breakout candidate for the Miami Dolphins, and so far, he's underwhelming. All right, wide receivers coach Ben Johnson said that there have been some bad days so far for Parker, but he's hoping the former 15th overall selection can bounce back. Well, meanwhile, you have Albert Wilson, who recently joined the team, actually seeing work on the outside along with Kenny Stills at wide receiver. You have Danny Amendola cemented as the slot guy. So where does that leave Devontae Parker? He's staring down the reality, guys, that he'll be a fourth receiving option for the Miami Dolphins this year unless somehow he turns things around. Highly touted coming out of college, high draft pick, a lot of promise, and yeah, he has dealt with some lack of continuity at the quarterback position, particularly with last season with Ryan Tannehill missing the entire 2017 campaign. But still, if you're Devontae Parker and you're looking at the wide receiver depth chart right now, especially with Jarvis Landry gone, this is your team. This is your positional group. And right now, it seems to be Kenny Stills, Danny Amendola's, and Albert Wilson's, and not Devontae Parker. So he's going to have to shine big time during the preseason games, you would think. By the way, any fantasy football players out there, please don't draft this guy. Like, it just is not worth it. I have to check the ADP of Devontae Parker. I would assume a little overvalued because of all this buzz heading into 2018 that he's going to be a big breakout candidate. Just don't think it's going to happen. All right, some injury updates here for Sony Michel and the New England Patriots. He's expected to miss the entire preseason and potentially the start of the regular season as he recovers from a knee injury he suffered during Wednesday's training camp practice. This coming from Jeff Howe. Adam Schefter originally reported Michel will miss at least 10 days. So Howe followed up, citing sources that it could be more extensive. Now, Michel underwent a knee procedure to drain fluid from the area, and he was touted to be the Dion Lewis replacement here in the backfield for New England. The good news is that New England has a lot of depth at running back. We'll see if Mike Gillislee makes a team or if it's Jeremy Hill, but either way, you have them on the roster. You have Rex Burkhead on the roster. So for the Patriots, by the way, James White too, there's no rush, I would think, to bring back Sony Michel. Now, if he is put on IR, that means New England can probably keep Jeremy Hill and Mike Gillislee at the same time. Otherwise, one of those two is going to get cut, you would think. So we'll keep our eyes out on Sony Michel here. Highly touted draft pick out of Georgia. Should be a good running back for the New England scheme. Didn't like the draft pick when it went down, but still. Injury front here for Michel. At least 10 days, could be more. Keep that in mind. We'll track it for you on the Cam Rogers Show. Speaking of injuries, Carson Wentz coming back from an ACL, rehabbing, looking good according to the coaching staff. But he may not play in the preseason. And this kind of echoes what Wentz recently said, a few weeks ago, that, I don't need to play in the preseason to be ready for the regular season. And when I first heard that, I was like, okay, well, wait. Like, if you're ready, if you're 100%, why not get the reps and, get the cobwebs out, if you will, to get ready for that Week 1 matchup against the Atlanta Falcons in primetime in the Thursday night opener? You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those deals. So, well, maybe Wentz won't even see the preseason after all, according to Ian Rappaport, that coming through the weekend. Yeah, I get it. I mean, of course, Nick Foles is your backup and Super Bowl MVP backup quarterback, might I add. And I've said before that the Eagles should not rush Carson Wentz to the fray. especially if he's not 100%. And if it takes the entire preseason to make sure he is 100%, then you should not play him in the preseason. So in one respect, I get it. In another respect, if he's 100% and you still got a couple games left, throw him out there for a couple series. But we shall see. Okay, we are officially in team hype season. The recent example, Chris Harris Jr., cornerback for the Denver Broncos, saying the Denver offense will score 30 points per game in 2018. Denver averaged a putrid 18 points per game last year, good for 27th in the NFL. But Denver did add some key players here. Case Keenum, Royce Freeman via the draft, Hamilton, Sutton via the draft as well. Here are some of the key offensive contributors. Emmanuel Sanders, Demaryius Thomas are still in town at the wide receiver position as well. So is there reason to believe that Denver will improve on the offensive side? Absolutely. But here are the facts about scoring 30 points per game. Since the NFL expanded to a 16-game season back in 1978, only 28 teams have averaged at least 30 points per game, guys. 28. That's 28 out of 1,201 total team seasons. In other words, just 2.3% of NFL teams in the last 40 years have averaged 30 points per game or more. So what you're saying is Chris Harris is fighting some odds right now with his prediction. And yes, that is what I'm saying. Now, will Denver make the postseason? That's another question. Hit me up in comments. Type Y for yes, type N for no. I think they will be a part of the conversation throughout the regular season. I don't think they make it. I actually have them finishing third in the AFC West, which will be tightly packed. I see Denver as an 8-8, 7-9, maybe 9-7 type of team. I have the Raiders winning that division, the Chargers finishing second, although if they continue with this injury trend, maybe that'll change for me. And then the Kansas City Chiefs finishing dead last. So let me know what you think about the Denver Broncos. Jimmy saying Case is a one-hit wonder. We'll see if that happens. By the way, Kirk Cousins replacing Case Keenum in Minnesota there. And he's earning some praise from one Adam Thielen as well as backup quarterback Trevor Siemian. Thielen saying he's doing a phenomenal job so far and went on to say that he needs to put his ability on the football field in a better position for Kirk Cousins to succeed. So Adam Thielen kind of putting more pressure on himself to make sure he puts Kirk Cousins in the best position to be a successful quarterback for Minnesota. And that makes sense, right? Kirk Cousins needs to really get on the same page with the likes of Stephon Diggs and Kyle Rudolph and Adam Thielen as well. Now, we all were blown away by that $84 million contract that Kirk Cousins signed. All guaranteed money, by the way. The thing is, Cousins doesn't necessarily have to perform at an $84 million level. Why? Because that defense is ultra good, elite, could be number one in the league in 2018. With every level of the defense, there is a player I can point to that will be a legit star at that respective positional group. Everson Griffin, Linval Joseph, and that secondary there, Xavier Rhodes and Harrison Smith. Everything is just set up perfectly for the Minnesota Vikings. And you got Dalvin Cook coming back at the running back position. For Kirk Cousins, he just can't be the reason the Minnesota Vikings lose. Like, he needs to just manage the game. Be there. Don't turn the football over. Maybe a couple of play action passes down the field to Stephon and Thielen and Kyle Rudolph down the seam. Run the football effectively with that offensive line that is a bit in some shuffle as we stand, but should be fine. Kind of overachieved last year, by the way, but should be all right. And there you go. So I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to be a legit Super Bowl 53 contender, and I'll give you some foreshadowing here as I eventually prepare to make my full season NFL predictions, particularly in regards to the postseason. The Minnesota Vikings are going to be atop my mind for my Super Bowl 53 projection. The AFC is going to be a little tough for me to predict because it's just so watered down. I don't know what's going to happen, parity, all this stuff. For the NFC, I really like Minnesota. I really like New Orleans, and I really like the Rams. So those three teams, that crop, I think, really elite tier teams. Philly is right behind them, I think. It's just really hard to repeat. But for Minnesota, really in good position to make some noise this year.